because everybody can do this as long as you're not trying to be somebody else.
Even if people are aware of techniques and processes, authenticity will always resonate.
So anytime that we can add in a descriptor that gets somebody to raise their hand a little bit higher, that's what we're looking for. So if I was to say, I'm a business coach working specifically with women, I've alienated half the room, but I've perked up the ears of the other half of the room.
This is a strategy that's not going away.
I taught this all to my wife. Every single speaker that came up, she was like, you ruined the magic for me. Like, I know exactly how this is all going to go and how it works. Like, this is the structure that every single one of them are using.
Welcome back to the Takeover. I'm really excited for today's episode because we're going to give you some practical, tactical, how do you go out and get clients right now this week, even if you don't have marketing funnel or a website or any of that. You don't even need a marketing budget to do what we're talking about today, because the man I have today, he's worked with leaders like Grant Cardone, Pete Vargas, Taylor Welch, Lisa Nichols, and a bunch of other people, both to help get on large stages and do lead magnets and get clients from large stages, all the way down to how do I go out and get customers this week, just grassroots hitting the street. So welcome to the show, Jasen Arias.
Yeah, great to see you.
Good to see you too, man. Well, I'm super excited to kind of jump in today. Before we kind of jump in, I just want to give, if you could just give a little couple minute on your background so the audience can kind of know, like, you've worked with some really high level leaders. You've worked with some very sophisticated type marketing and branding and getting on stages, but you're also really good at just getting down and if you have to go to a local network meeting or picking up the phone. So maybe give the audience a little bit of your background.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a longtime entrepreneur. I've done several different things. I really kind of stepped into the entrepreneurial world through photography. That's where I met my wife and we kind of grew things. And I really had my first exposure into what it means to try and grow a business from the ground. Learned a lot of lessons, learned everything from trying to use social media and website ads and websites and email marketing and like you name it, magazines. We tried it there. That took us on some great adventures, toured the United States for a summer, went into COVID. And then coming out of COVID, what I realized I missed the most was working with small businesses because we were working with a lot of photography studios at the time. And so I started looking for a coaching position, which is how I landed with Pete and Grant, and then got involved with the speaking industry and how people can use speaking opportunities to grow an audience. And then it was really kind of the spread of that journey of seeing what the big guys are doing, seeing what the little guys are struggling with, and being able to connect all those.
That's interesting. You ran operations for 10X stages with Pete
Right.
Vargas. And so a lot of times too, it's like when the little guys they're looking up at the big guys, are like, I want to do that. They think they all of a sudden need to have this big social media following, like all this crazy stuff, and then get up there. But there's actually a journey that people have to go on to get there. And you don't just all of a sudden, unless you win the influencer lottery or something, you don't all of a sudden get to that place. So as you're kind of seeing, bringing what a lot of these big guys are doing and big people in the industry are doing down to be something that's more like that a smaller business can do. What are some of those connections that you found, and what are some of those things that you felt like were applicable for the smaller business?
For me, there's a really strong thing to understand that most people chase, and I refer to it as the X factor, right? And so we look up to these big speakers, these big brands, these big influencers, and we want to try emulate them, right? Is that the right word? But we want to try and be like them. We want to try
Yeah.
and do the same things that they're doing. But the reality is that there are certain people that have a unique gift that very few of us have access to tap into, right? So we're all unique, but there's some people like trying to go out and be like Tony Robbins is going to be an impossible path to chase. So if you talk to them, it's like anybody could be like me. Well, not anybody could be like Tony Robbins. And so when we end up on that path, I think it creates a kind of a self-defeating journey. And so as I bridged between those two worlds of these big name celebrity-esque type speakers and brands and people that are trying to use it, what I wanted to focus more on is really helping people understand how they can do it. Because everybody can do this.
Yeah.
as long as you're not trying to be somebody else
If
and
if
eliminate.
if the bar is I have to be just like Tony Robbins, and but you're not. You can't be Tony because only Tony's Tony.
Right,
Only Grant's Grant. Only Les Brown's Les Brown. If you're trying to be that, like if I'm trying to be Michael Jordan, like I might be let down quite a bit. Like there was Kobe came, but he wasn't Michael Jordan. He was Kobe,
right.
right? And so it's like trying to be that person. And you're saying that there is some people that have a unique gifting to have that kind of superstar status power. Not everybody has. Just so I'm understanding you, but where would you say for maybe somebody that doesn't have just that, they're not oozing with that Tony Robbins or like that kind of energy? What would you say for them?
I think the other trap that a lot of us fall into is that we feel like, oh, if I don't have thousands of people to communicate with, then I can't be successful. But in reality, every single one of us have a hobby or a niche or something that we enjoy being a part of that oftentimes is groups of a couple hundred people. And because of social media, we overlook the value of influence of 20 people, 50 people, 100
Mm,
people, right? Those people, like think of the most obscure hobby that you don't really like, it doesn't matter if it's like knitting or playing chess or like I
rock
don't want to like,
finding.
but yeah, it doesn't matter what it is. There is a niche group of people. If we were to look at that niche group of people, they are all on a journey. Some of them are just getting started. Some of them are very well established. And
Mm,
some of them are right in the middle. Now, the person in the middle has invaluable insights to the person just getting started. So if I'm
yeah.
somebody that's in the middle, I don't like, and this is a trap that I fall into still. If I don't feel like I'm at the top, that I'm like the peak of expertise, sometimes I feel like I don't have enough information to share with people.
Yeah.
But that's not true. Like my experience, sometimes the guy in the middle, because it's so fresh of a journey for him where he started, can give you oftentimes better advice than the guy at the top. You ever listen to somebody and they rattle off solutions to people's problems? Like they're not big hurdles. Like, oh, it's not a big deal. What you're going to do
Yeah.
is you're just going to invest 10 grand and this is just going to work for you. And then you're up and running and everything's fine. You're like, what are you talking about? Like this,
Yeah.
that's not a tool that I have right now.
But they're all names that we all know. They're like they're with Tony's and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And he's in a mastermind with him. He's doing pretty well. But he's not at that level in his business yet. And he's like, it's a little hard sometimes being the mastermind because they'll be like, yeah, man, we're launching this new program and I'm just trying to figure out how to, do this marketing strategy for it. And, one guy who's got 4 million followers, like, yeah, just send a blast out to your followers. It'll blow your program up. And the other guy's like, yeah, I would do the same thing. And he's like, I don't got 4 million followers, So it's like sometimes what I'm hearing you say is like when they're with the problems that you're dealing with, when you're at this complete high peak level and the solutions that you're dealing with, there's a disconnect between the person that's like, yo, I dealt with where you're at. I was there 2 years ago. Here's how I dealt with it to get where I'm at today. And you're saying like that kind of experience can actually have more value. And so if people are listening, you don't have to be the guy saying, just blast your 4 million person list. Like you can say,
Right.
here's what I did last year. Here's what I did last month to fix that problem you're dealing with right now.
Exactly. Like here would be a great analogy. How many garage mechanics do you think are out there in the world? Like 16-year-old, 17-year-old kids that are trying to do their first thing, their first job on their car. They don't have a lift. They don't have all the tools. They don't have all of that stuff. But there's other guys that have been a garage mechanic for the last decade and they've figured out how to stack blocks so that you can get underneath your car. You don't like the guy that has the lift and the full shop and a snap-on truck that pulls up every single day, that guy's detached from those kind of solutions anymore. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yeah.
But the
I,
garage mechanic guy is going to be able to help other early garage mechanics.
I was a garage mechanic guy in my 20s during
Yeah, yeah,
during
yeah.
during
So you know
college.
exactly what I'm talking about.
But I mean, I had a list. No center blocks, man. Let's kind of shift to this, man. I mean, if you're looking, so if I'm a small business, say like I'm a coach, I'm a marketing agency, or I just got myself going, where do you see that kind of journey is? There's a lot of confusion. Obviously, like what we do at Pima is very like outbound marketing. We can get
Yep.
meetings, but it does require an investment. It does require there to be, so you have to have some kind of money you can put into the business. Where would you go for that entrepreneur that's like, dude, I need to get some money raised up. Maybe they want to hire Pima, maybe they want to do something like that. Like, I don't have any money. I need to go get clients this week. I know you and I were talking before the show, and what you said was, I think, super valuable. So where would you go if you needed to get clients this week.
Here's the thing. A lot of you guys are going to have heard BNI networking groups. You ever been to BNI, Tim?
No, dude, I drank the
Okay.
Kool-Aid for
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So, so
I
you
loved
can
it, man. I learned a lot. I learned a lot going to them.
invaluable, right? So a
Yeah.
lot of people avoid that. If you want to hack the BNI system, you can go to two networking meetings absolutely for free. So without signing up, you just show up and you go as a guest. And my advice to everybody would be to learn how to talk to a small group like that as a complete stranger in order to convey what it is that you're doing. Like you'll know
Hmm.
this as well as I do. You've got to be able to convey what it is that you do and what your business solves as a problem in a short amount of time. They're not going to read long sheets. They're not going to do all these things. And
Not
BNI,
you're not going up in BNI and giving a slide deck. Well, let me give you my
right?
presentation.
With BNI, one of their staples is that you do like everybody does like a 30 to 60-second presentation every BNI networking group. You'll learn after you go through a few of these, you will quickly learn how to be able to address your business as a value.
I think for me, man, because I was, people listening, they already know, like I used to be a super shy kid, but I would see people that could communicate well. Like, how the heck do they do that? How do they own a room? So I became a student of like learning that. And I would say for sure, BNI specifically was what really allowed me to develop that being able to go into a room and be comfortable and meet people and communicate. That was for sure because I was super nervous to do that stuff. And it took work. It took me doing being in the bathroom, visualizing it going well and all that. But the room, what you're saying, man, is very true. It allows you to become very good at communicating, getting comfortable, speaking with people, networking, but then also being able to convey your value in a very short time. Because I mean, if they're eating lunch there, man, they're like,
Yeah.
you better catch their attention.
So let me drop a kind of what I would consider a pro tip with this. And this is the homework that some people can do, after listening to the show. There's basically two types of people that go to these networking events. I'm gonna use a realtor as the example for this. There are the people that will show up and say, "Hey, I'm a realtor. If you're looking at buying or selling a house or know somebody, let me know." There's that group. And everybody knows a realtor. Everybody's been connected with realtors. There's probably two realtors in that BNI group that you just introduced yourself to. And so nobody really cares.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a realtor,
You're not going to get a customer from that pitch.
no, if you're a realtor and you walk in and you were to say, "Hey, my name's Stacy. I work with single moms who are trying to buy their first family home. If you know anybody like that, I would love to sit down and give them some tips and advice on struggles they may be going through." That is where you want to get with your business. Like, who are
Mm.
you really helping so that somebody can identify themselves or somebody that they know with who you want to help? I really try and keep people from saying, "Oh, I'm an architect," or I'm a realtor or I sell
Yeah.
tires or whatever it is." Try and go in. And when somebody says, "Oh, what do you do?" "I work with single moms trying to buy their first homes." Like niche it down so that people are like, "Oh, I know
Oh, I
three moms
love
right
that,
now that are trying to
man.
do that."
I love that. So when I was in BNI, I had a detailing company and we were very niche down. We got in with like the Ferrari Club, the Porsche Club. And so you're saying like, kind of thinking about when I was in BI and it's something like, well, we clean cars. Be like,
Right.
if anybody needs a clean car, it's like, hey, we specialize in high-end detailing. We do stuff for Porsche Club, Ferrari Club. If you've got a car that you love or know anybody that's a car collector and really values their car and loves to keep it clean and pristine, let me know. So it's like, instead I wash cars, like really dialing in on who's that kind of person you're trying to meet. I know kind of why that works psychology. Like, what is it about that allows the people listening to kind of be like, oh, I know somebody. Well, like, what do you think's happening there?
I refer to it as getting people to raise their hand. So anytime that we can add in a descriptor that gets somebody to raise their hand a little bit higher, that's what we're looking for. So if I was to say, "I'm a business coach working specifically with women,"
Mm.
I've alienated half the room in some ways, but I've perked up the ears of the other half of the room. Now, if
Mm.
I was to say, "I work with women over 40 going through a career change," now it's like, that's me, and that's me again.
If there's 100 people in the room, you're not trying to get 100. If you can get out of those people, if you can get people to raise their hand, if you give a generic, hey, I help people with their career, no one's going to raise their hand. If you say I help these people, you might isolate and only be targeting a small group in those people, but the people you do target, they will, wait, hey, we need to talk.
Yeah. So let's take your experience, for example, when you were working with high-end cars, Ferraris and Porsches and stuff like that, right? So
Yeah,
saying I detail exotic vehicles for people who really are passionate and, drive sports or whatever that ended up being. If somebody came up and said, I've got a really high performance Honda Civic, would you detail that for me as well? Are you going to say no?
sure, brother. Only if you love it as much as my Ferrari guys love their Ferrari. Okay, cool.
Just because you niche down, just because I say I help single moms buy their first family home, doesn't mean that when dad comes over and says, hey, I'm a single dad and I'm kind of going through similar issues. Can you help me? You don't say no. It
Mm,
just lets people know where your passion is. It lets them know that you have similar interests into something that maybe they align with, and it creates that conversation piece between the two of you versus I help detail cars and it's just so generic and bold and
yeah.
or sorry, not bold, boring and aimless. Like you have to figure out what that niche is. And I'm telling you, this is the magic to it. If you nail down that who I work with within a niche and you go to a group and you say, this is who I work with, I can almost guarantee out of a group of 10 or 20 people, you'll have 1 to 3 people be like, I've got somebody I need you to talk to.
There are a lot of coaches, consultants, and marketing agencies, the owners that'll be listening to this, and anybody else that's not a coach, consultant, marketing agency, still listen. But I would love for you, because I know you know those industries as
Sure.
a BNI. If you need clients right now, what's
I
maybe
love
a
it.
pitch a business coach could give in one of these rooms?
Here is the number one thing you have to identify before you go into that room is where is my ideal client? Where are they at on their journey? So let's
Mm,
talk about business coaches. Are you a business coach that is helping new entrepreneurs? Are you a business coach helping failing entrepreneurs? Or are you a business coach that is a successful, like helping successful entrepreneurs? All three of those have different problems.
yeah,
And so if you can go in, if I'm a business coach or if I'm in the marketing world or I'm like wherever I'm at, identify who it is that you work with. If you can niche further, like let's say you're helping people launch a gym business or maybe not Alex Hermosi type stuff, but just pick, it doesn't matter what the niche is. I help women start their first yoga studio, their first yoga business, whatever that is. You can niche down even that far, but really identify where they're at on their journey and
yeah.
then incorporate that into who you're working with.
Well, I mean, so would you say do any kind of research about who's going to be in the room, so you can also understand, like, hey, there's a lot of X type of people in there, or would you make it more just because BNI's got a mix of all the different industries? Would you do any kind of research on that room before you go?
I don't think so because I'm of the opinion that we should be building businesses that we love. So I'm not chasing what somebody else is doing and necessarily trying to fix their problems. I'm not saying that that's a bad way to go. There's lots of opportunities of being like, hey, I see an issue here and I'm going to go fix that, whether I care about it or not. My passion comes through when I'm working on things that I enjoy working on. And so if I enjoy helping tradespeople, plumbers and carpenters and electricians and helping them grow their businesses, and I don't really
Lawyers.
enjoy helping photographers or lawyers or
Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah.
then I'm gonna focus on that. And then the other part too, Tim, is that you want to make sure that you can actually help these people. You want to make sure that you
Yeah.
have a solution for a problem that they have.
I agree. You don't want to just try to like make some money. You want to make sure that you're doing well. So here we are, we're at this event. I could see the rooms in my mind because I used to
Yeah.
hit that. I'd go to the chamber. I was doing the circuit every week, and it does work if you know how to work it. So we got that. Maybe we set up, we give our pitch. How do we transition that into a conversation, into a meeting, into a client?
My favorite trick, the easiest one, is to not take business cards. When somebody says, hey, I would love to talk, I need your business card, let them know that you just ran out and that you'd be happy to take their business card and reach out. So keep the ball in your court. I think that's really, really important so that you're the one that's in charge of reaching out to them.
We just pull out the phone right there and be like, hey, cool, let's do it. Let's do a coffee. Put it on the calendar.
So that's the next step up from that. So if you can
Cool.
have the systems in place to where you have your calendar already and be like, hey, let's just throw something on the calendar real quick. Bring up your calendar, figure out what works, throw their information in, automatically goes into your CRM system, and you're up and running.
I love it. So now we got the meeting, and then it's just a matter of, hey, tell me about your standard stuff, discovery. Tell me about your problems, what's going on, how long has it been going on for? Now you're just running a standard sales process at this
Yep.
point.
Yep.
Awesome, man.
That's it.
So let's talk about this, man. Because that's a really quick way to get it. I think one thing that you're good at and understand is using lead magnets. So let's say you start getting some clients in, you start doing stuff like that. I mean, when you start getting an opportunity to even speak, because like a BNI, for instance, there is opportunities where you get to speak and you get
Yep.
to give your presentation on your whole company, or when you get opportunities to do podcasts like this, like you stated at the end, Jason, I'm sure you're going to give us a free lead magnet that's going to actually help our clients out, right?
Yep.
So like, how do you see that as far as the next phase of like getting on stages, getting in front of other people, and using lead magnets to bring people into your funnel?
So lead magnets, free offers, things like that. That's kind of like the next step when you're moving past one-on-one conversations and you have that opportunity. And this works great at local networking events still.
Hmm.
If you have an opportunity to talk to anybody and you can start getting into the storytelling side of things. Let's go back to your example with cleaning cars and things like that. You could have a short story that you go into a BNI networking group that you've kind of established. You know, there's some people in there, and you can say, hey, we were working on getting gum. This guy brought in his Porsche and there was gum stuffed all up underneath his carpet, and it was a pain in the ass to get out. So we had to go through these steps and involved using a steamer. Like, this would be in your expertise. I don't know how to get gum
Yeah,
out of
yeah,
a
sure.
carpet, but my gut is that would be one story. And then you could kind of lean into, and what it made me realize was that a lot of us at home deal with issues like gum or ink stains or getting a coffee smell, like whatever that is, right? So I put together a list and a series of videos that you can download. If you go to takecareofmycar.com, you can download this entire list and just keep your guys' cars cleaner at home. You're like, take it, I want you to have it. So if you can develop a free offer where you're helping your ideal audience and their pain points for free, now you're just collecting a list of people that will actually take the time to invest into their cars that way. And every industry has this.
And I like the framework. There was the story.
Yep.
If any of you, I thought, hey, there's probably a lot of other people dealing with this. So I put together a free resource, call to
Yep.
action, go to this website.
Yep.
And then you're going to get their email, you're going to get their phone number. And then what do you do with that? Do you put them through an email warm up? Do you cold call them? Like, what does that process look like?
Depends on what your volume is, right? So if you get 3 leads, I would suggest reaching out to them directly, being like, hey, did that work? What was it in this that, you were really having problems with? Because maybe you end up in that conversation, they recognize that you actually care about their problem, and they say, I haven't had time to get the gum out. Can you just come over and do that
Yeah.
for me? Or can I bring it to you and
Yeah.
get it done? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Bring it on by, right? So it's an easy transition. You already know that they have a problem that this fixes, so you
Mm.
know why you're calling, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're getting tens of leads, hundreds of leads, thousands of leads, then you got to start looking at ways of what I call like bucketing them. How can I put them into different categories so that I know how to communicate with them slightly differently, or how to reach out, or putting them into different nurturing campaigns?
Right. Like one
And
could be in your example, one could be problem with gum, or it could be they said that they just want their a good wax to keep their paint shiny. So now the buckets allows you to kind of market to the one person versus another person differently.
maybe on that follow-up list, you ask them like, hey, if I could help you with one problem area in your with your vehicle, what would that be? And you've got a list of the top 10 things that you really maybe are the most profitable for your business, and they hit a check mark next to it. And
Mm.
then that sends out a series of emails based on waxes for your vehicle or steps to take. And really at that point, then you're indicating like maybe how they could do it at home, but how much more time it takes and mistakes they could be making. And you're at that point
And
showing the
you could even do
value.
like a simple PS, like PS, if you want us to do this for you, feel free to reach out.
Here's
And that could be
here's
like a
the
booking.
calendar to go ahead and get it booked.
Yeah, I love it. And so like I think I just want to make sure everybody listening to this, just make sure you're thinking about how this could apply to your business. Because I mean, literally what Jason's giving you is you could go out to a local network meeting, you could start doing the one-on-ones, you could start doing a lead magnet. The stuff's not very hard to set up. You could start getting leads right now. Now, is that going to make you a millionaire tomorrow? No, like, but we're not talking get rich quick. We're talking about, remember the beginning of this episode, what did Jason talk about? There was the big businesses that were crazy successful, and there was the small people. Well, it takes time to get there. You're not going to warp speed to that top place. And this
Right.
is just such a powerful way that if you truly want to grow your business, I mean, gosh, I don't think there's a lower barrier to entry than what you're talking about right now, man.
It's free, and it's the only thing that I can guarantee. So if somebody came and said, hey, I need to find a way to get 3 to 5 leads this week that I can end up on phone calls with, and this is the only way that I know that I can virtually guarantee 3 to 5 leads in a week. I don't know what you're going to be able to do with social media. I don't know if you have an email list. I don't know any of that kind of stuff. And I can't guarantee any of that stuff.
We're going out, we're local networking. Okay, now we're getting some clients, we're getting some flow there, things are happening. Where's our next transition? From your point of view, the way that you would market, you would grow, where would that next transition be?
Next step is going to be starting to get on podcasting. So if you have a business that can particularly have a national reach, there's local podcasts, typically not as many. If you're in an industry and you have a business that you can get a national reach, then I would start looking at getting involved with podcasts.
And how do you go about doing that? How do you get on podcasts? And follow up question that's going to be, would you use the same type of lead magnet?
100%. So everything that we've been talking about is essentially practicing and prepping for getting on some of the podcasts. And here's the thing too. There are, just like your people are at with their business, there are podcasts that are just getting started and there's podcasts that are very well established. All of them have value
Mm,
because when you're first learning how to get on a podcast, one of the things that's unique is that you're in a conversation with purpose,
yep.
meaning the podcast host has their goal that they want to get out of it. And as a business person, you should have a goal that you want to get out of it as well. If you're not actively thinking about that, a lot of times podcasts will just end up kind of going directions that maybe you're happy to talk about, but it doesn't end up leading back to why you're on that podcast to begin with.
Mm,
And so
yes.
use those
And I've
early,
seen a lot of that. A lot of
yeah,
people just having fun. Oh, I do all these podcasts, and you look, they're not
right.
doing it. They're not doing anything with it. It's just you're having fun, but you're not building your business. I don't know. It's like unless, in my opinion, unless you're building podcasts so big that you're collecting money on ads and sponsors, then you do need to be like, okay, like let me get value, but also like there's got to be some kind of angle for me to get my brand and my company known out there.
When you're getting started, if you've never been on a podcast, like reach out to a bunch of small podcasts that are just getting started and just get comfortable with it. Make sure that your microphone's working, make sure that your camera's working, make sure that you know how to log in quickly and that you're not freaking out just because you're on a podcast. Like get acclimated to the whole ecosystem before you land
Joe
good.
Rogan.
Right. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so, and the way to start doing that is literally back to the first thing that we talked about with knowing exactly who it is that you work with. So
Mm.
if you can reach out to a podcast, be like, hey, Tim, I love what you're doing with your show. I specifically help early entrepreneurs who are struggling at getting those early leads for little cost. And I would love to come on and talk to your audience if you believe that that would be of value. Now you've created the niche for the podcast host to make a decision on whether
Mm.
you're a good fit for them or not a good fit for them, right? If they say yes, you've kind of predefined your topic and your audience to the audience that you know is going to be a good fit for your business. So everybody wins.
Yeah, everybody listening. I mean, that's what you're doing. You came on here and that's exactly what you're doing is you're giving value to that audience. Yeah. And so, because I think a lot of time, every relationship, every conversation you ever have, it's like, what's in it for them? You know, when we're even when we're, we've had some pretty cool, like big name people on the podcast, when we're reaching out to them, you can't just be like, hey, you want to come hang out with me for an hour,
Right.
even though you charge $2,000 or whatever an hour. It's like, you got to be like, hey, love to have you on the podcast. This is what our audience is. Here's the kind of promotion we do. Here's the exposure that you can get. The reverse is true. If you're going to go reach out on a podcast, it's like, here's the value I can bring to you and to your audience.
Yep.
And how would you do that if it's, say it is kind of a, like a newer entrepreneur, like, well, and they're going out to a new podcast. Do you have any kind of framework for how you would do your reach outs?
Listen to a show, get a little bit of exposure to who they are and what they're doing, who their audience is. Make sure that you can help the pain points of their audience. It is so imperative that you recognize and that you are humble enough to know that your only job to be on the podcast is to deliver value to the audience, right? So
Mm,
the host will value you if you give value to their audience. The audience will value both of you if you give value to the audience. That's how the exchange works. Like you have to remember, like you and I are in this, as like a business, and it's something that we do every single day. The audience is on a treadmill using their free time to listen in and trying to learn something, to grow something that they're passionate about. This is that opportunity to build trust with them.
I like it. So we were talking a little bit before about framework. Did you want to kind of walk through that framework? If you are presenting, if you are on a podcast and you get to that, can you walk through the, because I think you're really good at this and you've actually worked with you've worked with a lot of like really established leaders on how to create their framework, how to create their speeches, how to create their presentations. I'm kind of oversaying it, but I just want people listening. This guy, Jason he knows how these frameworks work extremely well. So as you're listening to this, if you're on that treadmill, pull up your phone, take some notes. If you're at a desk, pull out your pen, get ready to take some notes here. Because I think this framework he's going to give you, just so you know, is going to be very valuable for you.
I like to keep things really simple. Okay. And I don't like scripts because when we are working from a script, we're worried about what we should be saying next instead of actually sitting and connecting with the person that I'm talking to or being authentic within the conversation, all of those kinds of things, right? So there's four sections that I think podcasts and talks and things like that should be chunked into. Section one is the story. It's the way you and I started it as well. You're like, hey, tell people a little bit about you. And, if you can lead into that with a story, that story is what allows people to recognize if they can relate to you or not. Because if they don't relate to you, they're not going to take advice from you and they're not going to trust you. So you have to start off with some kind of story at the beginning.
And I like part of your story was, hey, because you help the smaller entrepreneurs. You said, hey, I saw these big people doing all this stuff, and I saw these smaller entrepreneurs, and I wanted to help them. So your story kind of led into the value you were going to deliver. Was that intentional?
100%. So that
Yeah.
story, you would have heard it too when I was talking to you about with the car thing, and like fixing. So I had a story. I had gum in my client's carpet and I was trying to figure it out. And because of this experience that I was having, I want to teach you how to fix some of this stuff. Okay. So
Yeah.
you've got your story. That story leads into teaching them something. So then you would go in and you would teach them how to get gum out of the carpet, how to share a story, how to build a free offer, like whatever all of this is. And what we're educating on today, just to kind of show some transparency behind the scenes. When I do this, it always disrupts my fourth one. I can never come up with any authentic. It'll make sense when we get there, but so we've done
Now
the
I'm
story.
curious.
We've done the education part. Okay. So that's where we're at right now is we're teaching people how to get into networking events, something that they can actionably do. Don't be that person says, and I'm going to teach you how to add an extra 10 yards to your drive. All you have to do is click below. Like you haven't taught them anything. You've just told them to
Yeah.
click on something. So you have to teach something that will create an actionable change in their world, hopefully in the near future.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a quick win. It's got to be something that could be a quick win.
And that's where you spend ideally the majority of your talk. So if I was like critiquing how things are going with you and I's conversation right now, we've spent a large amount of time giving people actionable advice that they can go and make an impact with their lead gen using speaking opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay. Whether ever anybody hears from us again, I feel like hopefully somebody's learned something, be like, oh,
Dude, anybody listening to this can go get clients this week
love it.
from this talk, and we're not even done yet.
Right. Stage three is that you want to provide them a tool that supports something that you just got done teaching them. Okay. So that is where your free offer comes in. And it doesn't
Okay.
need to take very long, but this is how you keep things from feeling salesy. And you brought it up when I was talking about the carpet. I had this story that I had gum in the carpet. This is how I fixed it. I realized there's probably a lot of people out there that might having this problem. So I created a free download that you guys can use to get all sorts of stains out of the carpet in your rides. If you want it, go grab it here. And then the last part, and this always diffuses me being able to really close with any real story, is you want to close with one last story. Something that just reconnects you back with the audience. It can be something that it's like, I started doing this and I had this experience, or I had a client do this the other day and they had this experience, or like one that I tend to lean in on is I remember how deflating it would feel to launch social media ads, spend hundreds or thousands of dollars, and then find out that the leads weren't really that great, or nobody replied, or it was basically just giving us more information to run the next ad.
Wow.
And that's really difficult to experience. And so you're bookending that it's like, man, this person knows exactly where I'm at and exactly how I'm feeling.
Oh, you're ending on a very heartfelt, like, oh, I can relate to this person. Dude, that's
Yeah.
powerful. Some people know like how to do those story value, lead magnet, that's like very few that know that, but story, value, lead magnet, and then close with just like a heart, just an emotional connection where I can feel connected. I can relate to Jason. I mean, I don't think it's very rare that you see somebody executing those pieces. And I think it's the people that are doing it are they're doing well, or they're on their way to doing well.
So I taught this all to my wife. Do you remember that thing that Dean Graziosi and Tony and Matthew McConaughey did together probably about a year ago now?
I don't remember. I do know Matthew McConaughey's doing a lot more.
Yeah, yeah. So she
What
was all
happened there?
excited, right? So she tuned in, and because I had shared with her this structure, every single speaker that came up, she was like, "You ruined the magic for me. Like I know exactly how this is all going to go and how it works. Like this is the structure that every single one of them are using."
That's so she's like, listen to Matthew McConaughey, like that story doesn't even land anymore. So what you're saying is because you're giving it out,
Yeah.
and when you give your lead magnet, you're saying it's going to diffuse your story.
Right, right.
Oh,
So I just broke down like the structure here in the education part.
oh,
And so no, it's cool because I love the transparency behind it. It
yeah,
like
yeah,
removing some of that magic. So what essentially ends up out of order is the number 3 and the number 4 stage in our conversation, right?
huh,
Because I have the free offer to support everything that we've been teaching today, right?
yeah,
But it's that closing story that we kind of brought up that I mentioned. Like, as I really want people to understand that it's not about necessarily a tear-jerking story. It's not about any of those kinds of things. It's
okay.
Again, I really want to hammer in on this, identifying where your ideal audience is on their journey, because I want to share stories and topics that are relative to that part of their journey.
I want to say something on that. I'm jumping in a lot, but this is so many people think that they have to have the be next to the Ferrari, and which is getting freaking getting get the FTC to chase you down, by the way,
Yeah,
eventually. But like what you're saying is it's not about the Ferrari, it's more about the person not being relatable to the audience
right.
more than anything.
So, and there's
Okay.
a lot of coaches and mentors and all those guys out there that are like, hey, check me out. Like you're saying, at my Ferrari, I'm in this big house and I'm hanging out with all these people. And you can be just like me by signing up with my entry level course. Like that is such a vast journey to go across. Like it's kind of unrelatable. Like, what are you talking about? I'm not going to buy a private plane this year. You're crazy.
I had trouble paying my mortgage last month. Like,
Right.
geez.
If you were to instead niche down and be like, I work with a lot of people who are struggling paying their rent. I know the tactics that we do where we're, what is it, robbing Peter to pay Paul. I can
Yeah.
help you navigate that without feeling guilty about it. Like sometimes that has to happen in business to be able to get things to move to that next step so that you have the opportunity. That person that is going through that and experiencing that right now is looking for somebody that understands their struggles, not, well, just make sure you pay everything on time. And I know you're working 3 jobs, but get out there and do the networking. And like,
Mm.
you got to be able to recognize where, like I said, where they're at on their journey. And when they know that you recognize that, you become the only person that they believe they can work with.
There's so many gold. I think anybody watching this, like, you got to come back and listen to this a few times because they're literally, Jason, you gave the beginning to end what it takes to get to your business off the ground, or if your revenue's down, get your revenue back up, get back in a good place. And this can keep growing because I was looking at the statistics of podcasts. I mean, they're growing and they're growing, and the awareness is growing and growing, and that just means that the strategy we're talking about here is only going to grow more because guess where people are consuming this? Jason said on the treadmill, in the car, everywhere.
Yep.
And guess what? So if you can get on these podcasts and you can start on that ground level, work your way up, this is a strategy that's not going away. In-person networking is not going away.
Right.
So I'm just super thankful, Jason, that you gave away just a ton of value. Like literally, man, like you showed out and gave a lot of value. Appreciate you a lot. I want to make sure you've got something for our audience to kind of help them make it a little bit more practical. How can they get some of the resources that you have?
Sure. So this is step 3. So everybody understands we jumbled things around, but normally what I would say is, so now you're on these podcasts, you want to be able to develop a free offer, and that can be tough. Like you want to make sure that there's some rules with free offers. So I have a website, buildfreeoffers.com. It's not my main website. It's just a place where somebody can go and download, and there's 42 free offers that they can grab inspiration from, get some tips, some ideas, find out what I like, what I don't like with free offers, and just use them.
Awesome. So what was that website again?
Buildfreeoffers.com.
Buildfreeoffers.com. Dude, you should have made it easier, man. That's such a hard website to remember.
Well,
Buildfreeoffers.com.
I also bought 42freeoffers.com, and I think that one's working as well, if that's even
Oh,
easier.
okay. Now I'm getting confused, seriously, but awesome, man. Well, I mean, you got to close this out. Give us part four, dude. It's where we're juicy here. So connect with us, man.
Yeah, like I will tap back into the frustration because I still find that frustration when I decide to run a rogue social media ad that I haven't put all the work into or any of those things. If you really struggle with that deflated feeling of I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on a website and I've done this with SEO and I've done this with magazine ads and I've done all that stuff. And I'm telling you, overcome that fear of getting out to do local networking. You can build a connection with somebody in the matter of 2 to 3 minutes that online could take 2 or 3 months. And those are the wins that we need in those early entrepreneurial years. Like you'll learn just so much. Like get out there. People are so hungry for authenticity and real connection. So get out there and connect with people.
No, I agree, man. And the funny thing is, I knew it was coming, but you still executed it well,
Yeah.
and because it was authentic, it was true. And that's the thing. I think even if people are aware of of techniques and processes, authenticity will make it. It will always resonate. Like anybody listen to Jason, they're like, "Well, I really actually resonated. I knew exactly what Jason was doing, but it was actually real. It was authentic. It was genuine, and you did it out of integrity." And I think you could just feel that, man. So, Jason, it's been super awesome to have you on here. Make sure to go, is it buildfreeoffers.com?
Yep. Buildfreeoffers.com.
Dude, look, I remember to go to buildfreeoffers.com, check it out. Jason, this has been super helpful. Anybody listening to this, please listen to the episode again. If you need clients and you don't have the budget yet, you're just looking to get clients right now, go back to this episode, take notes, sign up, go to your local BNIs. What are a couple other maybe local networking is? We got Chamber of Commerce. What other networking groups that maybe some people could check out?
The one that I am utilizing the most, and it's going to sound counterintuitive, but is by far the most beneficial for my guys out there. Look into eWomen networking. You can
Right.
join eWomen network. They call us emails, but
Email.
yeah. But if you can like go join that local chapter, and I'm telling you, like they're very welcoming and it's really easy to stand out and get attention and start communicating. That would be my hands down. If I had to pick one right now, that's the one that I'm in.
Well, Jason, it was awesome to have you on the show. Again, this was the takeover. And remember, winning is not a destination, it is a way of life. Stay winning.